Y'all, I can't even believe that this episode is really happening right now. Honestly, I just can't. I just really can't. Yeah. So let's just jump right into it. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is James Howard Jr., and you're tuned into another episode of the Men to Men podcast. This podcast is all about helping men honor God in every single part of their lives. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, I want you to consider subscribing. Today, y'all, we're going to be having a conversation with a good friend of mine. I can say that now. A good friend of mine, his name is Josh Griffin. Now, if you don't know who Josh Griffin is, this guy is a youth ministry legend, and he works alongside the youth ministry legend of Doug Fields. And I think it's safe to say that this would be my first famous person on this podcast. We got our first celebrity. We just do. We have our first celebrity in this thing. Before you click off the video, before you say, man, this is not going to be interesting, here's the thing. We're not going to be talking about youth ministry. It's going to pop up because that's the nature of who we are. But our focus today is to help you as a man of God honor God in every single part of your life. That's what this podcast is all about. Make sure you stay tuned to the end. We got a little bit of a game we're gonna play with Josh. Man, we youth pastors, right? So we gotta have some type of game, some type of fun element in this. So make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end for that part. All right. So let's jump into this episode of the Man to Man podcast. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is James Howard Jr. You're tuned in to another episode of the Man to Man podcast. Today, I am so excited. I'm so elated. I'm so whatever other words express that kind of ness, because I'm here hanging out with my friend Josh Griffin on today. Josh, how you doing, sir?
Oh, what's up, man? I'm doing great. You look terrific today, by the way. If you're watching the video podcast, you look like you cleaned up. Well done.
Right. Thank you. And I do apologize, man. Josh wasn't aware that this was a video podcast.
Yeah,
And
let's
so,
just say this. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you're in for a treat. If you're watching on YouTube, this is what you get.
this is it.
James is like, come be on my podcast. And then 2 minutes ago was like, it's video. Thanks, bro. I'm kidding, dude. I'm honored to be on the show. Thanks for the invite.
Man, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, man, I am talking to a youth ministry legend. I don't know if he considers himself that, but I do. I don't know if you know. I know you don't know, but I started youth ministry back in 2008. In your books and Doug Fields stuff and your stuff, man, was like the foundation of me just learning youth ministry, man. So I just wanted to say thank you in front of everybody for just your wisdom and for dealing with Doug and just hanging out with him, man. And y'all just hashing out so many great things for us,
Right
for
on.
youth workers all over the world, man. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. That means a ton to me. I definitely would not consider myself a legend. Usually that's just code for that guy's pretty old. So, which is true. I've been in youth ministry for about, 27, 28 years probably now. And I'm currently a junior high pastor as well. So I want to help youth workers and help kids grow in their faith. But I'm still a youth pastor to this day too. So hanging in there.
Yeah, and that's good, man. And they say it takes a special person to do youth ministry, and I don't know if I should be honored or offended when people tell me that. So I just don't know, man.
If I'm on a plane somewhere and I tell someone that I do junior high ministry in particular or youth ministry, they immediately like recoil a little bit, like, oh, what? You know, like they know,
like why?
Why? Everyone else is running out, and you and I are running in, man. That's it.
Running in, man. They need loving, caring adults, man, like us, to deal with them. I mean, help them grow spiritually. And so, all right, man. So, this just so y'all know, for those of you who are listening, this is not going to be a podcast episode about youth ministry, even though I'm sure we can tap into a fountain of wisdom from this guy. But for those of you who are new to this podcast, it's all about helping men honor God in every single part of their lives. And so I had an opportunity to meet Josh. Was it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Just a couple weeks ago at the Orange Conference. And I met you probably not even a year ago with DYM stuff and all that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool. to get to know him, man. And so my thing is, man, you cannot be, first of all, in ministry for as long as you've been in ministry if you don't have if you wouldn't have had some kind of foundational things about you, right? Unless you're just really good at faking things, man. Uh, at the core of it, there has to be a good, solid foundation in your personal relationship with Jesus Christ if you're going to continue to help others grow as well. So I just want to tap into that. I know you probably get asked a lot of questions about youth ministry, but I want to ask you specific questions about just being a man of God. And for our listeners out there, most of them are men. It's the Men to Men podcast. And so we're going to be talking to some men today and really just helping them in their spiritual walk. So I got a list of 5 different questions.
Okay.
5 different questions, and this whole podcast focuses on 5 different areas of life. We talk about our spiritual growth, our relationships with other people. We talk about our professional and financial, different things like that. We talk about our health. It can be our physical and mental health as well. And then we talk about our emotions as well. And so we're going to tap into it. We got 5 questions. We'll see how many we can get in.
Yeah, let's
But
go.
that's kind of the thing we're going. Yeah. And so first question, we're talking about spiritual growth. Like you said, as a man of God, we are called to be leaders. We are called to not only lead our homes, but to lead our communities. But that can't happen in a healthy way if we don't have a spiritual foundation. And so I want to ask you this question. Said, what does it mean to you to be a godly man in the kind of world and the kind of environments we live in today's times?
Yeah, it's a great question, James, dude. Then thanks for the kind words and the introduction. That was very, very cool. I would say, honestly, I just want to be a person, in addition to being a dad and a husband and a youth pastor, is I want to be a person who follows Jesus. And to me, and I look at the example of the disciples, and I'm so thankful for them because they didn't have it all together. They weren't perfect. In fact, some of them were kind of a hot mess or a dumpster fire at times, like me, and they did their best to walk with Jesus. So my full name is Joshua Peter Griffin, which is very funny if you watch Family Guy. But I appreciate that my parents named me as a middle child, as a second born. They named me after Peter, which is a great name, but he's not a great disciple. But of course, he is a great disciple. And he is known for one of the men who walked with Jesus. And that's who I want to be too. So it doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I have it all together. Even as someone who's on stage, someone who's leading teenagers in my professional life as well, it doesn't mean I'm perfect, but far from it. I'm definitely still broken and very much a work in progress. But I'm trying to follow in the footsteps of Jesus in that humanness and, of course, through God's power as well. And I think ultimately realizing the responsibility as part of my job in the church and as a youth worker, there's a bunch of teenagers that are looking at me too, and looking at how to follow Jesus. So it's a little bit of extra pressure that way as well. But I want to walk with and near Jesus as much as I can.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's important for us to remember, that we aren't perfect, that we don't have to be perfect. A lot of times I hear people say, like, when you're talk to somebody about Jesus or something like that, but like, man, I got to get myself together before I get it, come to God and stuff like that. It's like, man, like, dude, if you could, you wouldn't need him. And I think we just right. It's like, who needs Jesus if we can get ourselves together? And I remember we talked on, I think, last month or right after Easter, we talked about Peter, and we talked about the difference between him being, the one says, God, I'll die for you, and then he's the guy who cuts the guy's ear off, and then he's the guy who denies Jesus 3 times. But then when Jesus returns, there's this redemption process where this guy goes on to, one of his first sermons that we hear about, 3,000 plus people get saved. And so it's just a great example in the disciples specifically to kind of just show us like, yo, man, you ain't got to be perfect.
It's great being named after him too, because it is very grounding. Like you never, can't get too big of a head, because every time someone says your name, even Joshua to a degree, great leader, great man of God, but also flawed and human and broken. So it's a great grounding moment to say, you've never arrived, you never will. maybe you'll get to do some things for God's kingdom. Maybe He'll use you in that way. Maybe you'll be able to help some people. But at the end of the day, it's about Him and not me. So
Right.
yeah.
And I think that's a good focus for us to have as men, because even if we are successful, like you said, even if we are on stage, even if we are doing good things and stuff like that, at the end of the day, man, like you said, it's all about Him. So I think that's a good focus to have as a man of
Yeah.
God in this world we live in right now. All right. Next subject we're going to talk about is relationships, and I want to specifically talk about relationships with wives, with wives. We
One
understand
wife,
that.
just for the record,
Go ahead.
just one wife. You said
Just,
wives.
just
I only have one.
I mean, wise for all of us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the
Yeah,
clarity.
I only got one too. Just clarifying that. That's all we got, man. That's funny you say that, man. We have missionaries who are in Africa, and we're part of a seminary there, a Bible college there, and one thing that they find significant when they come to know Jesus and really start living for Him is that my name is such and such and such of one wife, and like it's a big thing to them that's the thing,
Really?
and it's just crazy. It's just one of the stories our missionaries tell
Wow.
us when they come from over there. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Well,
Um,
Josh and a man of one wife.
made up one wife, right? So, all right, and so when we talk about our wife, I want to. There's so many things that we can unpack for just honoring and loving and being leaders for our wives and being comforters and everything for our wives. But I want to talk specifically to the guy out there. I want you to talk specifically to the guy out there, man, who is doing their best to try to honor her and just live for God for her. What is some advice that you can give to a man out there, specifically maybe a younger married man who may
Yeah.
be dealing with some issues in the marriage and different things like that? I know issues in the marriage there's so many things that could be right there, but
Oh,
just a
yeah.
general advice you can give them.
Totally. Well, it's funny. I was just talking to my son the other night. He's starting to get serious with his girlfriend. And I just was talking about the kind of the common things that are what trip up most marriages. It was a great conversation. And he was like, oh, wow, really? And some of them made sense and other. But I would say this, if you're going through a tough time in your relationship, um, you're not alone. Like, marriage is challenging at times. It's also wonderful and the best and all of that,
Yeah.
but it can also be really, really challenging. And so, my wife Angela and I, she's a saint, that is for sure, and she's wonderful.
Yeah.
But there have been really challenging times in our relationship as well. So, oftentimes, when you're going through a tough season in your marriage, you look at other people and you think they just have it all together. It's perfect. They've never had the problems that you have. They've never faced, and you feel really lonely in that moment. And so, what I would challenge you to do is find somebody who can walk you through that. Maybe who has been in a similar situation, but really, I mean, all of us have been in tough, challenging moments in our relationship. If someone's been married more than a couple years, the honeymoon is over, and which is, I'm sure, where that expression comes from. And
Yeah.
they have seen some things, and they have messed up, and then they have had struggles. And so, remember, you're not alone, which I think is huge. But then, seek out some help. I think as men, and I think I would speak for more than myself, but definitely myself, we'd be a little bit prideful and a little bit like, I can handle this, or we're going to figure it out. And you don't necessarily let anybody else in. And so I think, I was just at a lunch today with some buddies, and it was so fun. And we're just talking very real about our lives. And so know that you're not alone, and reach out to somebody who can journey it with you. It's funny. Last night I was doing the dishes. That's not a humble brag, but it kind of is. Anyhow, I'm doing
It
the
is.
dishes, and that's one small thing that I contribute to our home every day. So when I walk in the door, I've had a long day wrangling junior hires or helping youth workers or whatever it is, and tried to get a workout in. I drove home and I'm home. The first thing I like to do is contribute in some way to the home. So just a little pro tip. It doesn't have to be the way that I'm choosing to do it, but when you walk in the door, pick up the kids, play with the kids, contribute in some way. So for me, it's I go right to the dishes. The sink's always full, and I just pitch in and help. Now
Yeah.
I have to dig deep because I'm tired. I've given everything, and I want
Yeah.
to give everything to my family as well. So it also, honestly, as soon as you get your hands in the soapy water, you don't have your laptop out, you don't have your phone out, you're not distracted. So it also gives you a chance to potentially talk, connect, catch up before maybe the chaos of the rest of the night in your home. So that's a bunch
Yeah.
of little freebies in there too. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's all good stuff, man. It kind of transitions into our next question too. Where we're talking about balancing your career, balancing your family, and your spiritual life. Um, I've always heard one of my mentors says there isn't really such thing as balance. But as far as, for the lack of a better term, man, what is some good advice? I think what you said was pretty good, but maybe something in addition
Yeah.
to something guys can do to have good balance between home and work and their own spiritual life and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for me, as the youth worker, like the leader of our ministry, I get to kind of control some of the calendar and the things that end up on my plate. And one of the things that I've done to try to find balance, and I don't disagree that balance is a little bit of a myth. It's a little bit of a holy grail. It's a little bit of a not real thing. Uh, but I do think there's ways that you can certainly nudge things and tip scales and whatnot. So anyhow, one of the ways that I do that is I plan my family calendar first, and
Mm.
then layer work and whatever else on top of it. So I let the family take priority as much as humanly possible. Again, there's an art to it. Sometimes the picture is beautiful, sometimes it's not. But I
Yeah.
would say what I can control is these are important family dates that I'm not going to miss. I'll give you a simple
Right.
example. Work and life balance, and spiritual life and kids, it's crazy. But there's something I'm not going to miss, and that is June 3rd is my daughter's graduation. Well, I'm not going to miss that for anything
Right.
on the planet. So I know that, and I put a stake in the ground, and then I work backwards from there. So who can teach youth group? Who can cover me that week? And then how can I contribute and make that a super memorable time for my daughter and my wife and family as well. So it takes priority, which I think if you don't, your job is going to take priority. Your career is
Yeah.
going to take priority. Your work relationships will take priority. That's just natural, at least the way I'm wired. It's natural for me to kind of go that direction towards like workaholism and all that stuff. I
Yeah.
like to build things. I like to fix things. I like to grow things. And so I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it's part of our gifting. But I think you have to watch it and make sure that you tip the scales sometimes in other directions as well. So that's one that I would do as well. What do you do, James? What do you got? You throw one in.
Yeah, I
I know
think
you're
one
just the
that
interviewer, but I want to know, dude. Help me out. Yeah.
I think one thing too is very similar to what you said, man, is just really working out that schedule. Um, in the past, I haven't done the best job at it, but it's one thing that me and my wife are just consistently communicating, and it's having to like shift like this year because my baby girl starts kindergarten, and so like vacations are pretty set on certain days and stuff like that. Usually, we could, just kind of go whenever, and so that's been a transition for us. Just looking at the calendar, establishing what we're gonna do as a family. Do I get it right all the time? No. Right? Do I forget some things? Yes. Do I last minute just say, "Hey, babe, yeah, I kind of got to be gone all weekend." It's like, "Oh, I kind of forgot to tell you." It's
Yep.
just like, it just is what it is, man. But I think that's one thing for sure is watching that calendar, and then two, like you said, just being intentional when I get home, because my wife, I mean, she works too. She works from home, but it's not easier because half the time she's working, you know, my daughter is at home too, and so she's just a champ, man. And so to come home and, like you say, wash
Amazing.
dishes and play with baby girl and let my wife just disappear, in the back room somewhere, and just tell baby girl, hey, just hang out with daddy, let's just watch TV, let's watch Spidey, let's just do
Yep.
something. And trying to be intentional with that is one thing. Do I get it right all the time? No. But it is a focus. It is a thing that I try to be intentional and just help around the house, clean up, fold clothes. I hate doing all that kind of stuff. I hate it all. I hate it. We all hate it. Everybody,
Yeah.
including my daughter. But somebody has to do it. So we take turns. We do what we're supposed to do. And you know, I'm not too manly to fold laundry and wash dishes and clean
You got
toilets and stuff like that. And just try to be intentional that way. So
it.
man, this conversation is good to me, but I want to know what you think. Man, is he saying stuff that is helpful? Are we saying things that are encouraging? Are we saying things that are helping you out? So if we are, I want you to go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let us know, right? Go ahead and type it. You can pause the video real quick, type it, and then you can pick it up once you finish that. And don't forget to stick around to the end to see the results of the game that we play with Josh. All right, let's get back into this episode of the Men to Men podcast. Next thing, we're talking about men kind of being like the leaders and kind of being the ones that have to be out there and basically get it. And so uh, the culture of the man being the one who's always on the grind, always being the one out there doing it. And I think it's good to have that little bit of grit to you as a man. But how important has rest been in your life? Is there a balance there for you? Is it something you struggle with? Is it something that it's
Yeah.
like, yo, I don't have a problem resting at all? how
Yeah,
how is that for you?
that's a great question. I will tell you, this is not my strong suit. I'm just going to be
Mhm.
honest with you, but I'll tell you what. I'm trying to make it a stronger thing for me. So I recently got. I don't know if you can see it on the camera very well, but I
Okay.
got a ring. It's called an Aura ring. I'm not sponsored, although I should be.
Probably
But
should.
it's a wedding ring that monitors your healthy habits or whatever, and exercise and activity and all that. It also measures your heart rate, whatever. It measures sleep. The idea is I just don't rest well. Like I am wired to go and stay up late, go, build, grind, And I do think our culture creates that and celebrates that. In my profession, in ministry, that can be a hungry thing all the time too, for sure.
Right.
But this is a simple reminder, and it just measures how well I sleep, when I go to bed. It tells me when to go to bed. It
Right.
tells me if I'm ready for the day in the morning or what I can do to help. So, because I'm not good at this, I'm good at going. I'm not good at whatever being slowing. I don't know. I have to. I put a tool in my life to help me
Uh,
that weakness become a strength. And to be honest, it's been really fun because there's a little gamified to it, and I love the challenge of trying to increase my readiness numbers or whatever. But it's a myth. I mean, at the end of the day, you're at your graveside. Your boss or the vice president might be at your funeral, and then they're going to hire the next you, and you're gone. But the impact that you make for God's kingdom, the impact you make in your family, in your children, your grandchildren, that's the stuff that really matters. And I do think it has taken me longer in my life to appreciate that. I've heard it a bunch. But I think when you get into a career a little further, you get into your whatever ladder, you start to realize what is really most important. I think if
right.
someone's listening today and they're young and they truly get this, I think that changes everything. Everybody gets it when they're old. Everybody gets it when they're on their deathbed, but very few people get it when they're living, and so or young for that matter. So the grind is a little bit of an illusion, and as much as I enjoy it and I do value working hard, um,
Right.
I'm learning how to rest. How about that? Is that an answer?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good because it can be easy to just keep going. It can be
Yeah,
easy to stay up late, wake up early, and just keep going because you don't feel bad, right? I got
yeah,
enough sleep, an hour or two it's okay, but it just eventually will catch up with you. And I think too, just for us to have optimal functioning body, brain, and all that kind of stuff, man. It's just just crazy the research out there on how powerful rest is, how powerful
Yeah.
deep sleep and all that kind of stuff is for us. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, last question here is as a man, I don't know about you, but growing up, I've always heard it, not specifically for like from my dad, but the idea of hiding your emotions as a boy, right? Don't cry, don't show your emotions, and different things like that.
Sure. I've
Um,
heard that.
how important would you say, like as an adult man, is it for us to have a good grip on our emotions, not necessarily crying all the time, right, but having a good grip and having my mentor calls it emotional intelligence. He didn't come up with it, but how important is it for us to have that?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be raised with a great dad who is still with us today. I got to visit him a couple weeks ago. Amazing role model, mentor, father, all the above. And he was and is not afraid of his emotions. So there's definitely a trend now, thankfully, especially for teenagers, to be able to talk about their feelings and to let things out. But even there's still a little stigma around men sharing their feelings in particular. And I was just very thankful for a dad who was born as a boomer, although my kids call me a boomer sometimes now. But anyhow, he was a boomer and was very in touch with his feelings and very honest and transparent and loving. And one of the things that my dad has taught me was how proud he was of me, and he says it all the time. And I think most men search their whole life for their dad to say those words to them. And I've never questioned it for a second. So I think one of the greatest gifts that a man can give his family and honestly his own health is to have some emotion and be human and to cry, and it's okay. I was watching a movie the other night with my kids, and I'm like, oh, it just got me. It just got me. I was crying. It was really good.
Yeah,
And I look over, and they're crying too, and I'm like, yes, that's good. I just think
right. Have nothing
it's
else
okay.
going.
It's okay.
Yeah,
In fact, it's probably not okay if you're not showing emotion. It's unhealthy. So I would say I'm thankful for a father that led that way when I was in his house. That's the dad I'm trying to be. But I would also
Mhm.
say it's a little easier for me. The way I'm wired, I'm kind of like out there. Whatever I am, it's out there. So I
Yeah,
realize that might not be as simple for some people watching or listening, where they're like, "What do you mean?"
yeah,
Um, but I think, especially if you're a dad, for your children's sake, mental health stuff is through the roof right now for teenagers. I study that a little bit, being a youth pastor myself. Um, I think your emotional health is really, really important. One last thing. My son the other day was like, I really need an emotional health day or a mental health day from school.
right.
And I was like, and I stopped myself and I put myself in his shoes, what was going on, all the pressures, and he's got some learning challenges and all this stuff. And you know what we did? We took a mental health day. And it was probably the smartest thing we could ever do. Now, everything inside of me was like, no, you got to go. You got to fight through it. You push that down and you get back in there.
Right. Be a
Um,
man.
yeah, be a man, kick him. And
Right.
it wasn't weakness. I mean, in a way, he was able to recoup and be
Wow.
stronger. And I wonder if men wouldn't be stronger with a little bit more of that. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Anyhow, I'm not
That's
a.
good.
I want to. There's a fine line there too. So I want to be a little careful, but that's where I'm at, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. That's good, man. Hey, man. As we wrap up, man, I want to do some just have a little fun with you. I'm going to do some lightning round questions. These I did not send to you on
Ooh, I
purpose.
like
All
it.
right.
If
So
you're
you
watching a
are
video
you
podcast,
are
you have to be
what's
wondering
that?
about what is all this Star Wars stuff around me. I can't believe you have not asked about Star Wars yet.
Oh, it's coming. All
Okay,
right.
good.
And
My whole
so that's what
office
I
is
was
filled.
right. So that was going to be the transition. So just some simple questions about Star Wars. My dad is a Star Wars and Star Trek fan.
Oh, let's
He grew up
go.
I grew up around it. I just never got into it, but I'm starting to get into it more, having a Disney Plus subscription. And so I'm
Yes.
trying to catch up on Boba Fett and all the
Good.
Mandalorians and all the kind
You're
of
about
stuff.
to
But
become a
I
Christian.
am
It'll be great.
green to it all. What's that?
I said you're about to become a Christian. It's great.
Right, that's great. All right, so lightning round questions. Your favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, so Empire Strikes Back, without a doubt, the very
Empire
best
Strikes.
one.
Very best one. All right, your favorite
Okay.
Star Wars show?
So show The Mandalorian. Season 1 was
Mandalorian.
unbelievable. 2 was really good. 3 was great. Mandalorian, hands down.
Okay, that's probably my favorite. I haven't seen very many, but
It's
that's
so
my
good.
favorite. I'm trying to wrap up season 3 now. Your favorite Star Wars character?
Well, I have him behind me. All of these characters, they're all the same person. They're all the scout trooper from Return of the Jedi. So I have like
Okay.
every variation. Let's see. Here's a one from 1983. The actual
Wow.
sealed. Yeah, someone paid $2 for that back in the day, and I paid more than $2 for that.
More than two.
Anyhow, Scout Trooper, he's my favorite. I have just about every variation ever here in my office. So there you go.
All right. So what makes the Scout Trooper so special? Why is he your
He
favorite?
goes really fast in the jungle on like a speeder bike thing. And when I was a kid, I would have been like 8 when the movie came out. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so
That is
the rest is history.
That's cool. So if you could be cast in any Star Wars movie, it can be ones coming up or ones in the past. Which one would you want to be? And
Yeah,
what kind of character would you be?
great question. Well, I'd want to be a biker scout, obviously.
Okay.
I'd like to be the voice of a biker scout, but I don't want to wear a helmet the whole time. This face needs to be seen.
Yeah,
So
we see that, man.
I would. Let's see. Here's another biker scout. I would be this guy, but his helmet would come off for some reason in the story, and you'd see me, and you'd be like, "That's Josh right there."
That's the guy. And then people would be like, "That's what they all look like, right
Yeah,
there. That's what they all should look
I'm
like."
all of them. That'd be awesome.
All of them. It's like the Clone Wars all over again.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool, man. Hey, Josh, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I don't know if you're real big on. Did you want to talk about that one?
No, I got all of
Okay,
them. Dude.
he got everything.
I'm surrounded by
I
toys.
don't. Yeah. So if y'all want to, you can zoom and enhance and check
Yeah,
all
and
that
look, I'll
out.
show you the ones
But
up here too. They're everywhere.
oh, there's more. I can only imagine what's behind the camera.
Yeah, I would show you, but it's just sad. It'd make you sad, probably.
Yeah, it'll probably make you sad, man. But again, man, we'd like to thank you for hanging out with us on this episode of the Men to Men podcast. I don't know how big you are with like getting people to follow you on social media or anything like that, but if people wanted to reach out to you, get things that you have created and all that kind of stuff, what are some websites or Instagram, whatever
Yeah.
places they can where can they find you online?
On social media, it's all the same at Joshua Griffin and Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And then downloadyouthministry.com is our platform to help youth workers as well. So if you know somebody at a church or in a youth ministry somewhere, point them our way. And yeah, there you go. Very fun.
Yeah. And just a side note too, if you're listening to this and you're not a youth pastor, download youth ministry games can work in other places, in corporate settings and different things like that, to have fun games to interact with your team and different things like that, man. So
Wow.
you don't have to just go there for youth ministry, but
Exactly.
I know
Yeah,
youth ministry,
teachers, conferences, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
all that, man. So Josh, again, man, thank you for your time. And thank y'all for tuning in to this episode of the Man to Man podcast. Again, I'd like to thank Josh Griffin for hanging out with us on this episode of the Man to Man podcast. My prayer is that we talked about something that was encouraging to you, that can help you develop and honor God in every single part of your life. If you've enjoyed this episode and you want more of it, I want you to go ahead and hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can be notified about future videos that we have. And if you want to hear more about what I do and what this channel is all about, I want you to check out this video right here. We'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.